Marcus Williams looked at his gold watch and smiled. It was almost 7 in the evening, and he was still in his office on the top floor of the Williams Technology Building. Through his big windows, he could see the city lights starting to shine. Below him, he owned this building, and he owned the biggest tech company in the state. At 35 years old, Marcus had more money than most people could dream of. He was getting ready to leave when he heard the soft sound of a vacuum cleaner down the hall. Marcus walked toward the sound and saw her. Rosa Johnson was cleaning the offices just like she did every night. She was a black woman in her 50s, wearing a simple blue uniform and comfortable shoes. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she worked quietly. Moving from room to room with her cleaning cart, Marcus had seen Rosa many times before, but he had never really talked to her. She was just the cleaning lady to him, someone who emptied his trash and wiped down his desk. He knew she had been working in the building for many years, but that was all he knew about her. Rosa looked up when she noticed Marcus watching her. She gave him a small, polite smile and nodded.
Very good.
"Evening, Mr. Williams," she said in a soft voice. "Good evening," Marcus replied, but his mind was already thinking about something else. At a big charity event coming up at his mansion next weekend. It was going to be the social event of the year. All the rich and important people in the city would be there. Everyone would be dressed in expensive clothes, drinking expensive wine, talking about expensive things. Marcus loved these parties because they made him feel powerful. He liked showing off his big house, his expensive art, and his important friends. But sometimes these events could be a little boring. All the same people, all the same conversations. He was always looking for ways to make things more interesting. He watched Rosa push her vacuum cleaner into the next office. A cruel idea came into his mind. What if he invited Rosa to his fancy party? The thought made him laugh out loud. Can you imagine? A cleaning lady at a black tie charity event? She would stick out like a sore thumb. She would probably be so scared and confused that she would leave right away. Or maybe she would try to fit in and make a fool of herself. Either way, it would be very funny for him and his friends to watch. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his friend Gregory Bennett. Gregory was another rich businessman who loved to make fun of people who were not as wealthy as them. Gregory. "I just had the funniest idea," Marcus said when Gregory answered the phone. "What is it?" Gregory asked. "You know my charity gala next weekend? I'm thinking about inviting someone special. Someone who will really make the evening interesting." "Who?" "The cleaning lady from my building. Can you imagine her trying to fit in with all of us? It would be hilarious." Gregory laughed loudly. "That's brilliant, Marcus. She'd probably show up in her work clothes or some cheap dress from a discount store. Your other guests will love it." "That's if she even shows up," Marcus said. "She'll probably be too scared to come. Sending her the invitation will be funny enough." The next day, Marcus had his assistant print out a special invitation on fancy paper. It was for his annual charity gala at his mansion. The invitation said that it was a black tie event, which meant everyone had to wear very formal, expensive clothes. The invitation also mentioned that dinner would cost $500 per person, and the money would go to charity. Marcus took the invitation and went down to the lower floors of his building. Looking for Rosa, he found her in the break room during her dinner break. She was sitting alone at a small table, eating a simple sandwich and reading a book. "Rosa," Marcus said, walking over to her table with a big fake smile on his face. Rosa looked up, surprised to see the owner of the building talking to her during her break. She quickly put her book down and stood up. "Yes, Mr. Williams. Is there something wrong with my work?" "Oh, no, nothing like that," Marcus said, still smiling. "Your work is fine. Actually, I wanted to give you something." He held out the fancy invitation. Rosa looked at the invitation with confusion. She took it carefully and read it slowly. Her eyes got wider as she read about the charity gala, the fancy dress code, and the expensive dinner price. "I don't understand, Mr. Williams," Rosa said quietly. "Why are you giving this to me?" Marcus tried to look serious and kind, but inside he was laughing. "Well, Rosa, you work so hard for this company. I thought it would be nice to invite you to our charity event. It's next Saturday night at my house. All the important people in the city will be there." Rosa looked at the invitation again, then back at Marcus. She could see something in his eyes that made her feel uncomfortable. She had worked for many rich people over the years, and she knew when someone was making fun of her. But she kept her face calm and polite. "This is very expensive, Mr. Williams," Rosa said, pointing to the dinner price on the invitation. "Don't worry about that," Marcus said, waving his hand. "Consider it my gift to you. You've been working here for so long, it's the least I can do." Rosa was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the invitation one more time, then folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. "Thank you, Mr. Williams. This is very kind of you." Was surprised. He had expected her to make excuses, to say she couldn't come, or to look scared and confused. Instead, she was calm and polite, just like always. "So, you'll come?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Rosa said simply. "I'll be there." Marcus didn't know what to say. This wasn't going the way he had planned. He had wanted her to be nervous or excited or grateful. Instead, she was just ... normal. "Well, good," Marcus said, backing away from the table. "I'll see you there then. Remember, it's black tie, very formal." "I understand," Rosa said. "Thank you again for the invitation." Marcus left the break room feeling confused. He had expected this to be much more fun. Maybe Rosa didn't understand what kind of event this was. Maybe she didn't know how fancy and expensive everything would be. Well, she would find out soon enough. As Marcus walked back to his office, he was already planning how he would tell his friends about this. They would all have a good laugh when they saw Rosa at the party. It would definitely make the evening more interesting. But if Marcus had stayed a little longer, he might have seen Rosa take the invitation out of her pocket and look at it again. And he might have seen the small, knowing smile that crossed her face as she folded it up and put it away. Rosa Johnson sat in her small apartment that evening, holding the fancy invitation in her hands. The paper felt expensive and smooth between her fingers. She read it again, even though she had already read it 5 times. Charity gala at Marcus Williams' mansion. Black tie event. $500 per person. Rosa set the invitation down on her kitchen table and walked to her bedroom. She opened her closet and pushed aside her work uniforms and simple clothes. At the very back, covered in plastic bags, hung 3 beautiful dresses. She had not touched them in 20 years. Rosa pulled out the first dress and held it up to herself in front of the mirror. It was a deep blue evening gown that she had worn to medical conferences when she was Dr. Rosa Johnson, back when she had a different life. Back when people called her doctor instead of just Rosa 20-2 years ago, Rosa had been one of the best heart surgeons in the city. She had worked at the biggest hospital, saved hundreds of lives, and earned a lot of money. She lived in a big house with her husband David and their little daughter Lisa. David was also a doctor. They were both very successful and happy. But then everything changed. One of David's patients died during surgery. Family said it was David's fault and took him to court. Even though David had done everything right, the court case went on for years. They had to pay huge amounts of money to lawyers. They lost their house, their cars, and all their savings. David became very sad and started drinking too much. Couldn't work anymore because no hospital would hire him. Rosa tried to keep working, but the stress was too much. She made a mistake during one surgery, and even though the patient was okay, the hospital fired her. Other hospitals heard about what happened and wouldn't hire her either. David left one day and never came back. Rosa never saw him again. Was alone with Lisa, who was only 8 years old. Rosa had no money, no job, and no way to pay for food or rent. She had to find work quickly, or they would end up on the street. The only job Rosa could find was cleaning offices at night. It paid very little money, but it was enough to rent a small apartment and buy food. Lisa never knew how scared Rosa was. During those first months, Rosa would work all night cleaning buildings, then come home and take care of Lisa during the day. She barely slept, but Rosa was strong. She was determined to give Lisa a good life, even if it meant working as a janitor. She never complained, and she never gave up. Slowly, things got a little better. Rosa found more cleaning jobs and started earning more money. She was very careful with every dollar. Lisa was a smart girl and did well in school. Rosa made sure Lisa never felt poor or different from other children. Rosa would save money for months just to buy Lisa new school clothes or shoes. Lisa never knew that Rosa sometimes didn't eat dinner, so there would be enough food for both of them. Over the years, Rosa kept learning. She read books about business and money during her breaks at work. She took classes at the community college on weekends. She learned about investing and started putting small amounts of money into the stock market. Very slowly, Rosa began to save money and build a better future. Lisa graduated from high school with top grades and got a scholarship to law school. She was now 28 years old and worked as a lawyer in another city. Lisa made good money and often tried to send money to her mother, but Rosa always said no. Rosa was proud that she could still take care of herself. What Lisa didn't know was that Rosa had been very smart with her money over the years. Rosa had bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood 5 years ago. She had saved over $50,000. She had also been taking business classes and was almost ready to start her own cleaning company. Rosa looked at herself in the mirror, still holding the blue dress. She was 53 years old now, but she was still beautiful. Hair was gray, but her eyes were bright and intelligent. She had stayed strong through 20 years of hard work. Rosa put the dress back and pulled out another one. This one was black with small diamonds sewn into the fabric. She remembered wearing it to a hospital charity dinner when she was 30. Everyone had said she looked stunning that night. Rosa smiled, remembering how confident she used to feel. She walked to her dresser and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a small wooden box. Rosa opened it and found her old jewelry. There was a pearl necklace that David had given her for their anniversary. There were diamond earrings that she had bought herself when she became the youngest female heart surgeon at the hospital. There was also her medical school graduation ring, which she had never sold. Even during the hardest times, Rosa sat on her bed and thought about Marcus Williams. She knew exactly what kind of man he was. She had met many men like him when she was a doctor. Rich, powerful men who thought they were better than everyone else. Men who looked down on people who worked with their hands or wore uniforms. Rosa knew that Marcus had invited her as a joke. She could see it in his eyes when he gave her the invitation. He expected her to be embarrassed or scared. He thought she would either not come to the party or show up looking poor and out of place. He wanted to laugh at her with his rich friends, but Marcus didn't know who Rosa really was. He didn't know that she had once been just as successful as him. He didn't know that she had saved lives, owned expensive things, and moved in the same social circles as his friends. He thought she was just a simple cleaning lady who didn't know anything about the world of rich people. Rosa stood up and walked to her phone. She dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Carmen's Boutique. This is Carmen speaking. Carmen, this is Rosa Johnson. You remember me? There was silence for a moment. Then Carmen's voice became excited. Rosa? Oh my goodness, I haven't heard from you in so long. How are you? Carmen Rodriguez had been Rosa's friend for many years. Carmen owned a small but exclusive dress shop where she designed clothes for wealthy women. When Rosa was a doctor, Carmen had made several dresses for her. I'm doing well, Carmen, but I need your help with something. I have a very important party to go to next weekend, and I need to look perfect. Of course. What kind of party? A charity gala. Very fancy. All the richest people in the city will be there. Alman was quiet for a moment. She knew about Rosa's hard times, though they had never talked about it directly. Rosa, are you sure about this? These kinds of parties can be very expensive, and ... Carmen Rosa said firmly, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I have the money to pay for whatever I need. Can you help me or not? Carmen smiled on the other end of the phone. She could hear the old confidence in Rosa's voice. The confidence of Dr. Rosa Johnson. Yes, Carmen said. I can definitely help you. Come to my shop tomorrow evening, and we'll make sure you look absolutely stunning. The next evening, Rosa walked into Carmen's boutique after finishing her cleaning work. The small shop was elegant and quiet, with beautiful dresses hanging on silk-covered hangers. Rosa had not been here in over 20 years, but it looked almost the same. Carmen came out from the back room and stopped when she saw Rosa, even in her simple work clothes. Rosa still had the grace and beauty that Carmen remembered from years ago. Rosa, Carmen said, giving her old friend a warm hug. You look wonderful. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you, Carmen. You look great too. Rosa looked around the shop. This place brings back so many memories. Carmen nodded. I remember making that red dress for you. It's the one you wore to the hospital's anniversary dinner. You looked like a movie star that night, Rosa smiled. That was a long time ago. Things are very different now. Tell me about this party you need to go to, Carmen said, leading Rosa to a comfortable chair. Rosa sat down and told Carmen about Marcus Williams and his invitation. She explained how Marcus had given her the invitation with that mean look in his eyes. She told Carmen that she knew it was supposed to be a joke. He thinks I'm just a poor cleaning lady who doesn't know anything about fancy parties, Rosa said. Wants me to look foolish in front of all his rich friends. Carmen listened carefully. She had known Rosa when Rosa was successful and confident. She also knew how hard Rosa's life had been since then. But now, sitting in her shop, Carmen could see something in Rosa's eyes that reminded her of the old days. Rosa looked determined and strong. So what do you want to do? Carmen asked. Want to show them exactly who I am? Rosa said firmly. I want to walk into that party looking so beautiful and elegant that Marcus Williams will forget how to speak. I want his friends to wonder who I am and why they've never met me before. Carmen smiled. That sounds like the Rosa I remember. Let's find you the perfect dress. For the next 2 hours, Carmen showed Rosa different dresses. Some were too young for her. Some were too plain. Some were too fancy, even for a charity gala. Finally, Carmen brought out a dress that made both women stop and stare. It was a long black dress made of the finest silk. The dress was simple, but perfect. It would show Rosa's figure beautifully without being too revealing. The dress had small crystals sewn into the fabric that would catch the light when Rosa moved. With the right jewelry and shoes, Rosa would look like royalty. This is it, Rosa said, holding the dress up to herself in front of the mirror. This is perfect. It will need to be altered to fit you exactly, Carmen said. Can you come back? Tomorrow for a fitting? Yes. How much will this cost? Carmen told her the price. It was expensive, but Rosa didn't hesitate. She had been saving money for years, and this was important. She wrote Carmen a check for the full amount. Rosa, Carmen said carefully, are you sure about this? I know you've been working very hard all these years. This is a lot of money. Rosa looked at her friend. Carmen, I've been poor for 20 years. I've worked 2 jobs, eaten cheap food, and worn old clothes. I've done everything I could to survive and take care of my daughter. But I'm not just a cleaning lady. I'm still Dr. Rosa Johnson inside, and it's time I showed the world that again. Carmen hugged Rosa. Then let's make sure you look absolutely perfect. The next evening, Rosa came back for her fitting. The dress fit her like it was made just for her body. Carmen made small adjustments to make it even more perfect. Rosa also bought shoes, a small purse, and had Carmen help her choose the right jewelry from her old collection. While they worked, Rosa told Carmen more about her life over the past 20 years. She talked about the hard times, but also about the good things. She was proud of her daughter Lisa, who was now a successful lawyer. She was proud that she had never given up, even when things seemed impossible. Lisa doesn't know I'm going to this party, Rosa said. She still thinks I'm just working as a janitor and struggling to pay my bills. She doesn't know about the house I bought or the money I've saved. She doesn't know that I'm planning to start my own business soon. Why don't you tell her? Carmen asked. Because I want to surprise her when I'm ready to leave my cleaning job and start my new life. I want it to be a complete surprise. I want her to see that her mother never really gave up her dreams. While Rosa was getting ready for the party, Marcus Williams was also making preparations. He had called several of his friends to tell them about his joke, wanted to make sure they would all be there to see Rosa make a fool of herself. Marcus called his friend Richard Cole, who owned several restaurants in the city. Richard, you have to come to my party on Saturday. I've invited someone very special. Who? Richard asked. The cleaning lady from my building. Can you imagine? She actually said she would come. This is going to be hilarious. Richard laughed. What do you think she'll wear? Some cheap dress from a discount store? If she shows up at all, Marcus said. She'll probably get scared and stay home. But if she does come, we'll have a good laugh. Marcus also called Helen Stewart, a wealthy woman who was always at the best parties in the city. Helen loved to gossip and make fun of people who didn't fit in with her social group. Helen, you must come to my gala this weekend. I've done something very funny. What did you do, Marcus? Helen asked. I invited my building's janitor, a black woman who cleans toilets for a living. I gave her a formal invitation, just like everyone else. I can't wait to see what happens, Helen gasped. Marcus, that's terrible, but also very funny. I wouldn't miss this for anything. Does she know it's black tie? Oh yes, I made sure to tell. Her. She said she understood, but I don't think she has any idea what she's getting into. By Friday evening, word had spread to many of Marcus's friends. Everyone was excited to see what would happen at the party. Some thought Rosa wouldn't show up. Others thought she would come but look completely out of place. A few people felt sorry for Rosa, but most of them thought Marcus's joke was very funny. Meanwhile, Rosa spent Friday evening getting her hair done at an expensive salon. She hadn't spent this much money on herself in 20 years, but she wanted everything to be perfect. The hairdresser styled her gray hair in an elegant way that made her look sophisticated and beautiful. On Saturday morning, Rosa woke up feeling nervous but excited. She had been planning this for a week, but now the day was finally here. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw Dr. Rosa Johnson looking back at her for the first time in 20 years. That afternoon, Rosa took a long bath and began getting ready. She did her makeup carefully, put on her beautiful dress, and chose her jewelry. When she was finished, she looked in the mirror and smiled. She looked elegant, confident, and beautiful. Marcus Williams had no idea what was coming for him. Rosa called for a taxi to take her to the party. As she waited, she thought about all the people who would be there tonight. Rich, powerful people who thought they were better than everyone else, people who had probably never worked hard for anything in their lives. Tonight, Rosa would show them what real strength and dignity looked like. Tonight, she would prove that a person's worth isn't measured by their job or their money, but by their character and their heart. Rosa Johnson was ready to reclaim her place in the world. Saturday evening arrived, and Marcus Williams stood in his huge mansion watching his guests arrive. His house was decorated with thousands of flowers and expensive lights. Waiters in white jackets carried trays of champagne and fancy food. Everyone was dressed in their most expensive clothes. Marcus wore a perfect black tuxedo and felt very proud of himself. His mansion was full of the most important people in the city. There were business owners, politicians, doctors, and lawyers. Everyone looked rich and successful. Marcus kept checking his watch. It was almost 8 o'clock, and he hadn't seen Rosa yet. He was starting to think she wouldn't show up after all. Maybe she had gotten scared. Maybe she realized she didn't belong at such a fancy party. "Where's your special guest?" asked Richard Cole, walking up to Marcus with a glass of wine. "I thought you said the cleaning lady was coming." "She said she would be here," Marcus replied. "But maybe she changed her mind. These people don't usually keep their promises." Helen Stewart joined them wearing a sparkling silver dress that cost more than most people made in a year. "I've been telling everyone about your little joke, Marcus. People are very excited to see what happens. If she shows up at all," said Gregory Bennett, laughing. "She's probably at home watching TV in her pajamas." Marcus looked around at his guests. Everyone was having a good time, drinking expensive wine and eating fancy food. But Marcus felt a little disappointed. He had been looking forward to seeing Rosa embarrass herself. He wanted to laugh at her with his friends. Just then, Marcus heard people near the front door start talking in excited whispers. The conversation in the room began to get quieter. Marcus looked toward the entrance to see what was happening. A black car had pulled up outside. It wasn't the most expensive car, but it was clean and elegant. The driver got out and opened the back door, and Rosa Johnson stepped out. Marcus's mouth fell open. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Rosa looked absolutely stunning. She wore a long black dress that fit her perfectly. The small crystals on the dress caught the light from the house and sparkled like stars. Her gray hair was styled beautifully, and she wore pearl earrings that made her face look elegant and sophisticated. Rosa walked slowly toward the front door, her head held high. She moved with the grace and confidence of someone who had been to parties like this many times before. She didn't look nervous or scared. She looked like she belonged there. The doorman opened the door for Rosa, and she stepped into the mansion. The moment she entered, the entire room seemed to stop. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. People turned to look at the beautiful woman who had just arrived. Rosa stood in the doorway for a moment, looking around the room with calm, intelligent eyes. She didn't look impressed by the expensive decorations or the fancy clothes. She looked like someone who had seen all of this before. Marcus felt his face turn red. This wasn't what was supposed to happen. Rosa was supposed to look out of place and embarrassed. She was supposed to be wearing some cheap dress and looking around with wide, confused eyes. Instead, she looked like she could be the guest of honor at the party. Some of the older guests began to whisper to each other. A few of them looked like they recognized Rosa from somewhere, but they couldn't remember where. Rosa began to walk through the room, and people naturally moved aside to let her pass. She nodded politely to people as she walked, and several guests nodded back respectfully. Rosa moved toward the bar and ordered a glass of red wine. "Excuse me," said an older man standing near Rosa. "You look very familiar. Have we met before?" Rosa turned to look at him. She recognized him as Dr. Franklin Hayes, who used to work at the same hospital where she had been a surgeon. But that was over 20 years ago, and she wasn't sure if he would remember her. "I don't think we've been properly introduced," Rosa said politely. "I'm Rosa Johnson." Dr. Hayes looked at her more carefully. Something about her voice and the way she carried herself seemed familiar. Rosa Johnson. That name sounds familiar. "Did you used to work in medicine?" "Yes," Rosa said simply. "A long time ago." Before Dr. Hayes could ask more questions, Helen Stewart appeared beside them. Helen had been watching Rosa from across the room and was very curious about this mysterious woman. "I don't think we've met," Helen said to Rosa. "I'm Helen Stewart. I know everyone at these parties, but I don't recognize you." "Rosa Johnson," Rosa replied, shaking Helen's hand. "Thank you for having me." "Oh, you're not my guest," Helen said with a little laugh. "This is Marcus Williams' party. How do you know Marcus?" Rosa smiled slightly. "We work in the same building." Helen looked confused. She knew all the important business people in the city, and she had never heard of Rosa Johnson. "What kind of business are you in?" "I'm in the service industry," Rosa said calmly. Before Helen could ask more questions, a waiter approached with a tray of expensive appetizers. Rosa thanked him and took one. She ate it with perfect manners, using the small fork correctly and not spilling anything on her dress. More people began to approach Rosa, curious about the elegant woman they had never seen before. Rosa spoke with them easily, discussing art, politics, and current events. She was clearly intelligent and well-educated. Several people were impressed by her knowledge and her graceful manner. Marcus watched all of this from across the room, feeling more and more uncomfortable. This wasn't going according to his plan at all. Rosa was supposed to make him look good by comparison. Instead, she was making him look foolish for not knowing who she really was. Gregory Bennett walked over to Marcus. "Who is that woman? She doesn't look like any cleaning lady I've ever seen." "That's her," Marcus said quietly. "It's Rosa, the janitor from my building." Gregory looked shocked. "Are you serious? She looked like she could be married to a senator or something. Are you sure you have the right person?" Marcus felt his anger growing. Rosa was ruining his joke. She was supposed to embarrass herself, not make him look stupid in front of his friends. Marcus decided he needed to do something. He walked across the room toward Rosa, who was now talking with a group of people about a recent art exhibition. Everyone was listening to her with interest and respect. "Rosa," Marcus said loudly, interrupting the conversation. "I'm so glad you could make it to my party." Everyone turned to look at Marcus. Rosa looked at him calmly, showing no sign of being embarrassed or intimidated. "Thank you for inviting me, Marcus," Rosa said politely. "I have a beautiful home." "I have to admit I'm surprised to see you here," Marcus said, trying to sound friendly but with a mean edge to his voice. "This isn't exactly the kind of party that people like you usually attend." The group of people around Rosa became quiet. They could sense that something uncomfortable was happening. Rosa looked directly at Marcus. Her eyes were calm and steady. "What kind of people do you think attend parties like this, Marcus?" Marcus felt everyone watching him. He had wanted to embarrass Rosa, but now he felt like she was the one in control of the situation. "Well, you know," Marcus said, stumbling over his words. "Successful people, business people, people who can afford this kind of thing." "I see," Rosa said quietly. "And what makes you think I can't afford to be here?" Marcus didn't know what to say. Rosa had completely turned the situation around. Instead of looking foolish, she looked dignified and strong. Instead of being embarrassed, she was making him look like a cruel small man. The people around them were starting to realize what Marcus had been trying to do. They could see that he had invited Rosa as some kind of joke. They didn't think it was funny at all. Rosa finished her wine and set the glass down on a nearby table. She looked around at all the people watching her, then back at Marcus. "Excuse me?" she said politely. "I think I'll get some fresh air." Rosa walked away, leaving Marcus standing there feeling foolish and angry. His perfect joke had completely backfired, and the evening was just getting started. Rosa stepped out onto Marcus's large back patio, where the cool evening air felt refreshing on her skin. The patio overlooked a beautiful garden with expensive lights and a small fountain. A few other guests were outside, talking quietly and enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. Rosa walked to the edge of the patio and looked out at the city lights in the distance. She felt calm and proud of herself. For the first time in 20 years, she felt like Dr. Rosa Johnson again. She had handled Marcus's cruel joke with grace and dignity, just like she had planned. Behind her, Rosa could hear people inside the mansion talking about her. Some were asking who she was. Others were saying how elegant and intelligent she seemed. A few people were saying that Marcus had been very rude to her. Dr. Franklin Hayes came outside and walked over to Rosa. He had been thinking about her all evening. Something had finally clicked in his memory. "Rosa," he said quietly, "I remember. You now? You're Dr. Rosa Johnson. You used to be a heart surgeon at City General Hospital." Rosa turned to look at him. She smiled sadly. "Yes, Dr. Hayes. That was a very long time ago. I remember you were one of the best surgeons we had," Dr. Hayes said. "You saved so many lives. What happened? Why did you leave medicine?" Rosa looked back out at the city lights. "Life happened, Dr. Hayes. Sometimes things don't go the way we plan." Dr. Hayes nodded with understanding. He had seen many good doctors leave medicine over the years for different reasons. "I'm sorry things were difficult for you, but you should know that people still remember the good work you did." "Thank you," Rosa said. "That means a lot to me." More guests began to come outside, drawn by the news that Rosa was a former doctor. Word was spreading quickly through the party that the mysterious, elegant woman was actually Dr. Rosa Johnson, a surgeon who had once been famous in the city's medical community. Helen Stewart came outside, looking very embarrassed. She had been asking people about Rosa and had learned the truth about who she really was. "Dr. Johnson," Helen said nervously, "I owe you an apology. I didn't know who you were earlier." "Hey, there's nothing to apologize for," Rosa said kindly. "You had no way of knowing but Marcus. What he did. Inviting you here as some kind of joke, ... that was terrible." Rosa looked at Helen with calm eyes. "Marcus invited me because he thought it would be funny to watch a poor cleaning lady embarrass herself at a fancy party. He didn't know that I've been to parties like this before. He didn't know that I once belonged in this world." More people gathered around Rosa on the patio. Everyone wanted to hear her story. Rosa told them about losing everything 20 years ago and having to start over as a janitor. She talked about working hard to support her daughter and slowly rebuilding her life. "I've been cleaning Marcus's building for 15 years, Rosa said. "Every night I empty his trash and clean his office. He's seen me thousands of times, but he never really looked at me. To him, I was just the invisible cleaning lady." An older woman named Patricia Moore stepped forward. Patricia was one of the most respected women in the city's social circle. "Dr. Johnson, what you've been through is remarkable. The strength it must have taken to rebuild your life. I'm very impressed." "We all are," added Richard Cole. "Most people would have given up." Rosa smiled. Giving up was never an option. "I had a daughter to raise and a future to build. I may have been working as a janitor, but inside I was still Dr. Rosa Johnson. I was still the woman who had saved lives and achieved great things." Inside the mansion, Marcus was having a terrible evening. His friends were no longer laughing about his joke. Instead, they were talking about how cruel and stupid he had been. People were asking him why he had tried to humiliate such an accomplished woman. Marcus felt angry and embarrassed. His perfect joke had turned into his worst nightmare. Rosa had made him look like a fool in front of everyone he wanted to impress. Marcus walked outside to the patio, where he found Rosa surrounded by a group of admiring guests. Everyone was listening to her with respect and interest. Marcus felt even more frustrated. "Rosa," Marcus said loudly, interrupting the conversation. "Can I speak with you privately?" Rosa looked at him calmly. "Of course, Marcus. What would you like to say?" Marcus had planned to confront Rosa and try to embarrass her more, but now, with everyone watching, he didn't know what to do. All the guests were looking at him with disapproval. I just wanted to say," Marcus struggled to find words. He realized that anything he said would make him look worse. "You wanted to say what, Marcus?" Rosa asked quietly. Marcus felt trapped. He could see in Rosa's eyes that she knew exactly what he had been trying to do. She had known from the beginning that his invitation was meant to be cruel. "I wanted to apologize," Marcus finally said, though he didn't really mean it. "I think there may have been some misunderstanding about tonight." Rosa stepped closer to Marcus. "There was no misunderstanding, Marcus. You invited me here because you thought it would be funny to watch me fail. You wanted your friends to laugh at the poor, ignorant cleaning lady who didn't know how to behave at a fancy party." The guests around them became very quiet. Everyone could see what was really happening. "But here's what you didn't know," Rosa continued. "I've been to hundreds of parties like this. I've worn dresses that cost more than your car. I've saved lives, given medical lectures, and been respected by some of the most important people in this city. You looked at me every day for 15 years, but you never really saw me." Marcus's face turned red. He wanted to argue with Rosa, but he knew she was right. He also knew that everyone at his party now thought he was a terrible person. "The saddest part," Rosa said, "is that you have so much, but you use it to try to hurt people instead of helping them. You have money, power, and influence, but you have no kindness or wisdom." Rosa turned to address all the guests who were watching. "I want to thank you all for a lovely evening. You've been very kind to me, but I think it's time for me to go." Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "Dr. Johnson, before you leave, I'd like to talk to you about something. I'm on the board of several medical charities. We're always looking for experienced people to help us with our work. Would you be interested?" Rosa's eyes lit up. "Would be very interested." Patricia Moore also stepped forward. "I'm starting a new foundation to help women restart their careers after difficult times. Someone with your experience and strength would be perfect to help lead this project." Soon, several other people were offering Rosa opportunities to work with their companies and organizations. They were impressed by her story and wanted to help her return to a professional career. Rosa felt tears of happiness in her eyes. For 20 years, she had worked quietly in the shadows, cleaning offices and being invisible. Now in one evening, she had the chance to step back into the light. "Thank you all," Rosa said. "These opportunities mean more to me than you know." Marcus watched as his guests gathered around Rosa, offering her jobs and asking for her contact information. His cruel joke had given Rosa exactly what she needed to change her life again. Rosa called for her taxi and prepared to leave. As she walked through the mansion toward the front door, people shook her hand and told her how much they admired her. She had come to the party as Marcus's joke, but she was leaving as the most respected person there. At the front door, Rosa turned back to look at Marcus one last time. "Thank you for the invitation, Marcus. This evening has been very important for my future." Rosa got into her taxi and rode home, smiling to herself. She had reclaimed her dignity and opened doors to a new life. Marcus had tried to hurt her, but instead, he had given her the greatest gift possible, the chance to show the world who she really was. The next Monday morning, Rosa went to work at the Williams building for the last time. She cleaned the offices one final time, then went to Marcus's office and left a letter of resignation on his desk. The letter simply said, "Thank you for the opportunity to work here. I'm moving on to new challenges. Dr. Rosa Johnson." Rosa walked out of the building with her head held high, ready to begin the next chapter of her life. She had proven that dignity and strength can never be taken away, no matter how hard someone tries to break you down.